Have you ever stopped to think about why two people who earn exactly the same salary can end up with completely opposite financial lives? One builds wealth, has peace of mind, choices, and freedom. The other lives paycheck to paycheck, always scrambling, feeling like there's never enough money. The most curious thing is that this difference is almost never in how much they earn, but in invisible decisions made automatically without realizing it. And there's a very specific line that most people cross thinking they're moving forward, when in reality they're starting to sink. Perhaps you've seen this firsthand. Two friends, same income, same age, same reality. One always seems more relaxed, while the other constantly complains about installments, bills, and lack of financial breathing room. What if I told you that, most of the time, this line begins to be crossed at the moment of buying a car? Not when buying just any car, but when making an emotional decision disguised as a rational one. The car becomes a symbol of achievement, of progress, of now I deserve it. And that's exactly where the danger lies. The market knows this. The dealerships know this. The banks know this. Everything is designed to make you believe that the payment fits your budget, that financing is normal, that everyone does it this way. But nobody shows you the invisible cost of this choice. Years of compromised income, postponed decisions, investments that never begin, dreams that are put off. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever felt that an expense seemed small at first, but silently grew and took up space in your financial life? The truth is that most people don't go broke from overspending on unnecessary things every day. They sink into financial ruin due to major bad decisions, mainly related to consumption and credit. And the car is the main culprit. That's where the invisible line forms. On one side, those who use the car as a tool, within clear limits. On the other, those who turn the car into a financial anchor without realizing it. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because this line isn't obvious. It doesn't come with a warning, and almost no one talks about it clearly. There's a simple logic, used by those who consistently build wealth, that acts as a filter against financial traps related to cars. It's a rule that has nothing to do with earning more, but with making better decisions. A rule that protects you from long-term financing, suffocating installments, and choices that seem normal but are costly in the long run. Stick with me until the end, because understanding this principle can completely change how you view your consumption decisions from now on. And before we continue, think about this. How many financial decisions have you made believing you were moving forward, when in reality you were only postponing your future? That's exactly what we need to talk about now. And as you recognize yourself in these situations, perhaps remembering decisions that seemed small at the time but now weigh much more than you imagined, I wanted to invite you to be a part of this real conversation. Because what we're talking about here isn't distant theory, it's real life. It's about choices, emotions, social pressure, and that silent feeling of, did I do the right thing? If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far, or even an experience you've had with cars, financing, or consumer decisions. Sometimes, putting it into words helps to see everything more clearly, and your comment can make someone watching feel less alone on this journey. And if at any point you felt that this reflection opened your eyes, shattered an illusion, or made you think twice before repeating a mistake, consider liking the video. It seems simple, but it's a direct way to show YouTube that this type of content needs to reach more people who are exactly at this point in their lives, trying to understand why they work so hard and still feel financially trapped. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people who need to hear this kind of message before making decisions that compromise years of their future. And if you want to continue deepening your understanding of financial education, consumer decisions, and the pitfalls that almost no one explains, subscribe to the channel. It's not just about numbers or cold rules, it's about gaining awareness, regaining control, and building a healthier relationship with money. When you subscribe, you show that you want to walk this path together, learning, questioning, and evolving little by little. Now, take a breath and stay with me, because from here on out, we're going to get to the point that separates those who use their car as a tool from those who, without realizing it, sacrifice years of their own financial freedom. When we talk about money, almost everyone first thinks about salary, earning more, increasing income. But there's a hidden truth that rarely comes up in this conversation. It's not just earnings that define someone's financial direction, but rather the decisions that seem normal, acceptable, even desirable. And no decision mixes as much emotion, pressure, and illusion as buying a car. A car is not just a means of transportation. It carries status, identity, a sense of accomplishment, and often the idea that you are moving forward in life. That's why it becomes the most common financial trap, and also the most silent. Unlike other expenses, buying a car comes at an emotionally charged time. There's urgency. There's comparison with other people. There's that feeling of, now I deserve it. And the entire system is built to push you in that direction. Dealerships train salespeople to talk about installments, not price. Banks facilitate credit as if it were a favor. Long-term financing is presented as something normal, almost inevitable. Everything sounds light, possible, accessible. The most dangerous phrase appears quickly. It fits in my budget. But almost no one stops to think about the impact of this over the years. The problem isn't the amount of the installment payment alone. It's what it silently steals from you. It steals choices. It steals your breath. It steals your freedom. A high installment doesn't just weigh on you at the end of the month. It weighs on your decisions. It makes you postpone investments, avoid smart risks, say no to opportunities, and always live on the edge. Little by little, without realizing it, the car ceases to be a tool and becomes an anchor. And the cruelest part is that this happens to responsible, hard-working people who believed they were doing everything right. Perhaps you know this feeling. That constant pressure of having excessively high fixed expenses. The feeling that money comes and goes quickly, without leaving a trace. The suffocation of looking to the future and realizing that it is always compromised by past decisions. The car starts to dictate the rhythm of your financial life. It defines how much you can risk, how much you can dream, how much you can breathe. This is the journey that many people embark on without realizing it, thinking they are simply following the normal flow of adult life. And that's where the real impact lies. The car doesn't destroy you financially in an explosive way. It corrodes you gradually. It transforms choices into obligations, desires into debt, freedom into long-term commitments. All of this is wrapped in a beautiful narrative of progress and success. Behind-the-scenes details that almost no one shows, but which explain why so many people feel they work hard and achieve little. There's a silent transformation happening in these decisions, a change in mindset that separates those who build wealth from those who are always trying to balance things out. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because understanding why cars occupy such a dangerous place is the first step in seeing the line that separates completely different financial destinies. And it starts to become clearer when we look at the invisible rules that protect some people from these traps. And if all of this made sense to you on some level, comment below. This makes sense to me. There comes a point where the confusion begins to organize itself, and the hidden truth becomes clearer. Not because someone earns more, not because they were lucky, but because they started using filters before making decisions. This is exactly where the 4-20-10 rule comes in. Not as a magic formula, nor as a rigid imposition, but as a visible line where before everything was emotional and nebulous. This rule acts as a silent boundary between those who build wealth consciously and those who enter, almost without realizing it, into a cycle of debt that is difficult to break. The first part of the rule talks about putting down at least 20%, and that, in Mido Onri, itself reveals a lot about mindset. Having a down payment means you're not being driven by urgency, impulse, or the pressure of the moment. It means you are able to wait, plan, and save. This drastically reduces the risk, the amount financed, and the power the bank has over your future income. The down payment isn't about the car itself. It's about transforming your relationship with big decisions. It's an emotional break disguised as a number. Next comes the 4-year financing limit. This point often bothers people because it exposes a truth that many prefer to avoid. If you need 6, 7, or 8 years to pay for a car, perhaps that car is beyond your current financial reach. Long-term financing is not a sign of ease. It's a sign of postponing problems. It creates a false sense of comfort now and a prolonged impact later. A short term forces choices more aligned with your real financial journey, not with the image you want to project. And then comes the 10%, which is perhaps the most powerful of all. It states that the total cost of the car, including payments, insurance, and maintenance, should not exceed 10% of your monthly income. This number doesn't exist by chance. It protects your life's flow. It prevents a single object from consuming too much of your future energy. When this limit is ignored, the car begins to compete with everything else: investments, experiences, rest, opportunities. Little by little, it ceases to be a means and becomes an end. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what's most important here isn't the isolated numbers, but what they reveal about financial decisions and behind-the-scenes dealings. The 4-20-10 rule isn't meant to stop you from owning a car. It's meant to stop the car from owning you. It creates clarity where before there was only emotion. It separates those who decide consciously from those who decide under pressure. And it's precisely this clarity that changes the course of an entire financial life, even when everything seems the same on the outside. If this explanation brought any insight to you, comment below. This makes sense to me. When we observe the passage of time with a little more attention, we realize that financial life doesn't change all at once. It unfolds. Small decisions accumulate until they form very different paths. Imagine two people who start from practically the same point, same age, similar income, similar routine. Neither of them is a finance expert. Neither was born with an advantage. The difference appears the moment each crosses that invisible line in the decision to buy a car. The first person decides to use the 24-10 rule as a filter, not because someone told them to, but because they understood the impact of this choice on the journey itself. They wait a little longer, save up for a down payment, accept a car that might not be so impressive, but that doesn't overwhelm them. The financing is smaller. The monthly cost fits comfortably. In daily life, this hardly attracts attention. There's no euphoria, no feeling of immediate victory, but there is tranquility. There is room for maneuver. There is mental space to think about the next step without despair. The second person ignores the rule, not out of irresponsibility, but due to the influence of the environment, comparison, and the urgency created from the outside in. The car is bigger, more expensive, more aligned with the image they want to project. The down payment is small or non-existent. The financing is long-term. The monthly payment seems acceptable on paper. In the beginning, everything works. There's a feeling of progress. But time begins to reveal the behind-the-scenes aspects of this decision. Income starts to be drained by fixed commitments. Any unforeseen event becomes stressful. Any opportunity seems too risky. While one person continues with open choices, the other begins to live in defensive mode. One is able to invest, change jobs more calmly, and accept changes. The other feels like she's always behind, always rushing, always putting out fires. The car, which was a symbol of achievement, becomes a constant reminder of limitation. And the most curious thing is that from the outside, many people still think that whoever ignored the rule is better off because appearances are deceiving. But inside, the story is quite different. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because this contrast isn't about right or wrong. It's about mindset and awareness. The 24-10 rule doesn't create wealth overnight, but it prevents silent stagnation. It preserves energy, time, and clarity. Over the years, this difference widens. One side accumulates choices, the other accumulates obligations. One builds tranquility, almost imperceptibly. The other normalizes stress as if it were part of adult life. This comparison isn't meant for judgment, but for revelation. On some level, everyone sees themselves on one of these paths, and when you realize that something changes inside, the decision ceases to be purely financial and becomes personal. Because ultimately, it's not about the car, it's about who controls whom. And when that realization starts to sink in, the line separating these two futures becomes increasingly visible. If this story made you reflect on which path you feel you're following, comment below. I'm on this journey too. When the conversation reaches this point, a silent resistance often arises. Many people think that the 4-20-10 rule only works in an ideal world, with stable income, a perfect scenario, and always rational decisions. But the hidden truth is that it was designed precisely for real life, with imperfections, variables, and constant adjustments. It doesn't exist to put you in a box, but rather to make you aware of the impact of your decisions throughout the journey. If your income fluctuates, for example, the most common mistake is calculating everything based on the best month. Conscious application of the rule calls for the opposite, using a more conservative average, one that represents your reality most of the time. This completely changes how you interpret what is possible and what isn't. Not because you don't deserve it, but because decisions made at peak income often exact a high price when the situation changes. Here, the rule becomes an instrument of emotional protection, not limitation. When it comes to used cars, many people think the rule loses its meaning, but the opposite is true. A well-chosen used car can be a powerful ally in this mindset. A larger down payment reduces risk, a shorter term decreases dependence on credit, and a monthly cost limit prevents maintenance and insurance from becoming a constant drain on financial resources. The focus shifts from appearance to real impact on daily life. This is practical transformation, not distant theory. Now, if you're already in the middle of a financing agreement, the rule doesn't come in as judgment, but as clarity. It helps you see where you are, not to generate guilt, but to guide your next steps. Perhaps the decision now isn't to change cars, but to accelerate repayment. Perhaps it's to avoid repeating the same pattern in the next purchase. Perhaps it's simply to become aware that this commitment cannot be repeated in the future. The revelation here is that there's always room for adjustment when there's awareness. When trading in a vehicle, the trap is usually even greater. The illusion of trading in for a similar monthly payment masks the restart of the cycle. Applying the 20-40-10 rule at this point requires composure and maturity. It means focusing less on immediate desire and more on the accumulated impact. It means understanding that moving up a financial rung isn't about trading in your car faster, but about gaining space, peace of mind, and choices. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because ultimately it's not about cars, numbers, or isolated rules. It's about mindset. It's about learning to decide without surrendering control to impulse, external pressure, or prepackaged narratives. The goal was never not to own a car. The goal is to not allow a car to hold back your financial life, your freedom, and your ability to choose your own path. Conscious decisions today shape a brighter tomorrow, and when that awareness takes hold, something changes inside. The urgency diminishes, comparison loses its power, and the focus begins to shift to what truly matters. It is at this point that the financial journey ceases to be reactive and becomes intentional, opening space for choices more aligned with who you want to become. If all of this resonated with you on any level, comment below. This makes sense to me. If you've made it this far, it's because this conversation resonated with you on some level. It wasn't just about cars, or just about numbers. It was about decisions, awareness, and how small choices build or hinder entire paths throughout life. And that's exactly the kind of reflection I want to continue bringing here, always in a practical, honest way, connected to real life. So, subscribe to the channel to keep up with this content and delve even deeper into this journey of financial transformation. Without empty promises, just clarity and direction. If this video resonated with you until the end, leave a simple comment saying, "This message was for me." This helps create a real exchange between viewers and strengthens this community that is learning to make better decisions, one step at a time. If at any point you felt that this conversation resonated with your story, leave a like as well. It's a silent but powerful way to show that this type of content needs to continue reaching more people. There's a video over here that perfectly complements everything we've discussed so far, delves even deeper into these revelations, and connects this topic to other important everyday decisions. Click on it and continue reading.